Welcome to Real Estate Coaching Radio, starring award-winning real estate coaches and #1 international best-selling authors, Tim and Julie Harris. Real Estate Coaching Radio is the nation's #1 daily radio show for realtors who demand authentic, real-time coaching. Get ready for fluff-free, unfiltered, full-strength honesty about what's truly working to get you into action, helping others, and making money now in today's real estate market. Now to our hosts, Tim and Julie Harris.
Welcome back. We have something to declare. Today's podcast is going to hopefully be something that you will remember. This will be a podcast for the ages.
No pressure.
This will be the podcast.
Turn the volume up.
Turn your volume up. Right. If you're having volume problems, turn your volume up. This will be the podcast of podcasts, the one that you save. You frame this podcast in your mind. This is the podcast that can change the trajectory of your life. Okay, I'm setting the bar really high, but here's what I want you guys to write down. We have 90 days left this year, and then it's 2020. Now, if you're listening to this podcast in replay next year and you're saying, oh my gosh, this is a replay, who cares? Listen to it anyway. It's still relevant. Here's the bottom line, guys. It's time for you to do what Julie and I do every year, which is it's time for you to declare TFW for 2020. And so I hashtag today's podcast, and I want you guys to start doing this as well. Hashtag TFW 2020. And here's what TFW stands for. And I'm not going to use the bad word. I'm not going to use the, you figure it out. Total effing war. But effing is not effing. It's, it's the other word, okay, which I don't want to say. So you guys get the point. And look, you're not being vulgar by declaring TFW. What you're doing is you're saying TFW means you're leaving it all on the field. TFW means you're not holding yourself back. TFW means you're going to stop listening to all the people telling you that you work too hard and you're being too hard on yourself. And, this is the time of year when you're supposed to kick back and appreciate and enjoy and smell the roses. No. That's a bunch of bullshit. TFW means that you fight. TFW means that you do what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level, especially this time of year because everybody else is going to be lazy. The easiest time of year in real estate to make money and be of service to other people is now because everybody else, whether they're consciously doing it or not, which frankly they're not, they're mostly doing it subconsciously, they just decide not to work. Watch, guys, at the end of October, there is something in the real estate industry which I do not understand where Halloween, which is one day, which is a bizarre holiday to begin with, if it's even really a holiday, becomes a week. And what happens is some of you look at Halloween week as the end of your year. This is what happens. This is what's always happened in real estate brokerages. And then people, and Julie, you don't need to tell your CVS story, and then people start telling their buyers and their sellers that the market is slow, and you might as well take your house off the market till the spring, blah, 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 blah. That's what happens to our industry. And this is the reason that every single top producer, and all of you listening who are top producers, you know what I'm about to say is unbelievably true. You need to think of the start of 2020 as today. Because if you try to build momentum, I don't care if you're a new agent, I don't care if you're tired, I don't care if you've had a hard year, it doesn't matter. If you want to have a fantastic next year, you have to declare TFW 2020 now. Your year, your new year, has already started. You have to get into action now. And I'm going to say this now in a different way for the third time. It's easier to get people to do business with you when you have less competition. Will everyone agree with that? Yes. It's easier for you to basically find motivated sellers this time of year than it is maybe in the spring. Can we all agree to that? Yes. You just haven't done it, so you don't know what I'm telling you is true. You can go after expireds and be the only one calling. You can go after for sale by owners and be the only one calling. You can go call your centers of influence of past clients, and you can talk to them about real estate, and follow some of the scripts that we teach you guys as part of the Premier Coaching Program. And then you'll discover that they are thinking about buying or selling next year, but with a little bit of, explanation of the market. You can listen to the Rob Johnson interview I did the other day. Listen to some of his scripts about that. Mr. Seller, Do you believe that the real estate, based on what's being reported and based on what we're seeing in the economy, do you believe that real estate's going to be worth more 6 months from now or less 6 months from now? And then based on whatever they say, most of them are going to say maybe about the same. Most of them won't say less. But then you can say, well, Mr. Seller, here are some interesting things you might want to take into consideration. A lot of people are believing that next year sometime we're going to be looking at a recession and interest rates might increase. So what effect will that have on the desirability of anything, let alone real estate? And they're going to say, well, probably it's going to be a buyer's market. And that's what's happening. So if you have those types of conversations with them now, you'll start moving those leads forward, which is what you want, because here's why. You cannot, and those of you who've made this mistake, what a lot of you do is you start getting lazy this time of year, and then you tell yourself you're going to crank it back up again early next year, but then what you're doing is you're cranking it back up again early next year when everybody else is doing the same thing. And when everybody else is doing the same thing and you have more competition and you're dealing with all these other types of things that happen in the spring, you are going to regret not having declared TFW now. That's the mistake that a lot of you guys are going to make. That's the reason that a lot of you have these years where you start out working and working and working, and then you have some closings. You have some closings in late spring, and then you basically, because you're servicing your sellers and you're servicing your closings and you're doing all the things necessary to get paid, then you stop working. You stop doing the lead generation. You stop doing the very things that you were doing in the first place, and then what happens to your income? Up and down, up and down, up and down. The only way to offset that, guys, is what we teach you in Premier Coaching, is to have a consistent amount of active listed properties, which we call the real estate magic number. And again, that's something that we teach you also in the real estate treasure map. And the way for you guys to find out about the real estate treasure map, and we give it to you for free, and you all must be completing this, is just simply text the word Harris, Harris, to 31996. Text the word Harris to 31996, and we're going to send you 6 books, including the Real Estate Treasure Map, and then you're going to be able to basically have a plan that's going to get you where you need to go into 2020. But for now, your action item must be work. I'm not even going to say work on your mindset, because that's just mental masturbation. What I want you to do is pay attention to what Julie's going to be presenting to all of you guys over the next few days. It's your 90-day massive action plan. Do as much of the 90-day massive action plan exactly like she's telling you to do it, and you're going to discover that you're going to have momentum going into next year. How do we define momentum? Momentum isn't just some touchy-feely word. We mean a certain number of active listings, and that's what all of you must be working towards at all times. A certain number of active listings is going to create buyers. It's going to create more active listings. It's going to create everything that you want, and then you'll have your best year ever. Versus if you make the normal mistake of waiting until the spring to restart your real estate career, then you're not going to have any momentum in the spring. You're going to have to work your butt off and hope and pray that you have momentum by the time the spring rolls around. Okay? That's the reality, guys. This is the reason a lot of you have needlessly suffered with your ups and downs in your income all these years, is simply for the fact that you haven't worked in fourth quarter like you should have. And you need to really focus on the opportunity that's in front of you, which is taking advantage of the fact that the rest of the market, your competition, is asleep at the wheel. Julie, are you live?
I believe I am.
You are. Okay. So Julie is going to walk through these points with you, and these points also are going to live on our website, which is timandjulieharris.com. So if you're listening to this video on YouTube, or if you're listening to us on iTunes, on Stitcher, or whatever else, you can hop over to timandjulieharris.com, and we're actually posting what Julie's reading, so you can cut and paste it, and you can print it out, and you can use it as your fill-in-the-blank plan. But this is taken from the Real Estate Treasure Map, which is the book that we give you when you text the word Harris, Harris, to 31996. 31996. Just text the word Harris to 31996. And so here's the exclamation mark at the end of the sentence before I hand it over to Julie. Write down and seriously consider starting your new year today. This is officially January 1st. This is officially TFW, Total Effing War 2020. Make that your thing. Don't wait. Please listen to what I'm telling you guys. It's the absolute stone cold truth. Build your momentum for next year now. Build your momentum for next year now, so that when everyone else is trying to build momentum, you've already got it. And then you can go to the next level. And then you do that every year. Hopefully that makes sense. Julie?
Hopefully. So before we get into the specific points, here's a public service announcement only for those interested in being profitable this quarter. Here's your reminder. Are you ready? It's earth-shattering. The month just changed. What are you doing about expired Palooza? I'm just going to leave it at that before we get into the specifics.
Well,
here.
don't leave it at that, Julie, because we have a lot of new listeners.
Okay.
This is the number one listened to daily podcast for real estate agents probably in the world.
I could clarify.
We have tens of thousands of listeners. So what she's telling you guys is that there's magic times to be calling expired listings. And if you've never done it before, we'll teach you how to do it. The magic times to call expired listings are at the end of the month and the beginning of the month. Why? Because most agents, wrongfully by the way, set their listings to expire at the end of the month and the beginning of the month. But Julie's touching on something else which makes this time of year very magical. If the end of the month and the beginning of the month fall over a holiday, think about this, listeners. That means the sellers of these expired listings, and frankly all the other sources of business that we want you to actually proactively prospect, they're going to answer the phone. And your fellow agents are not going to call. They're not going to be working over the holidays. And over the holidays means the week of, for example, Halloween, or the week or 2 weeks of Thanksgiving, or the week or 2 weeks of Christmas. You guys get the point? You work then. There's a spike in expireds. There's an absolute drop-off of competition. You make the phone calls. People are generally speaking in better moods. You're going to find that you can build your momentum then, but don't wait. You got to start doing this now. How do you learn how to prospect? You obviously want to consider becoming a coaching client, number one. But number two, you just start making the calls. Practice with the people who are on the other end of the phone, even if you're terrible at it, which is fine. When you're starting anything new, it's natural and normal to be terrible at it. Even if you're terrible at it, you'll get better because of the pressure and the stress of making the call. Again, the point is declare TFW 2020. Julie?
That's it. So here are some facts for you. Technically, there are 91 days left in the year. That's basically October 1st to December 31st. Technically, 92 days. But here's what you're going to do. Subtract 26 days just in Saturdays and Sundays because there's 13 weekends left. That gets you to 66 days. Now, I know you work on Saturdays. I know you might be the only one in your office. That's true. But the fact is it's harder to motivate everyone else as we get further into fourth quarter. So if we're going to keep it real, maybe you personally don't subtract all 26 weekend days. Maybe you subtract like 18 of them. But be realistic and actually look at your calendar. So let's just say you took those out. We get to 66 days. Then you're going to subtract 7 days for the week of Christmas and 7 days for New Year's, maybe a couple of days in there for Thanksgiving, and you're left with basically 52 work days. Now, that doesn't account for things like your own travel, your own holiday parties, your kids' parties, all of that other extra stuff that you know is going to happen fourth quarter. I know we've already scheduled several things into fourth quarter having to do with our one child. Some of you guys have 4 or 5. You're going to be busy, okay? So here's your homework assignment. Mark your calendar for which days are work days, put dollar signs on those, so you can bring your focus to your productivity and profit fourth quarter. And then put an X or put a smiley face, whatever you want to do for those days that you know, if you're being honest, you're not going to be working those days. Now, I know there's some people out there going, oh, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to work every day. It's TFW. I respect that. I get that. I understand. But again, it's not just you. So keeping it real, get your calendar out and take this homework assignment seriously. So mark it out because what we're trying to get you to realize is it looks like you've got an entire quarter left to meet or exceed the goals that you set at the beginning of the year or the beginning of this quarter. But really, you probably have about 50 days to get the job done. Somebody told me once, Tim, that the stress in real estate is from being in the static or the gray area. And the analogy was when you know, our millennials won't understand this, but back before there were remote controls and you flipped the switch and you get snow on the channel, you were in between channels, you didn't actually see anything. It was just a bunch of fuzz. Well, so in real estate, when you are supposed to be at work but mentally you're checked out because something else is going on, that's the static. It's the gray area. That's the stress. And it works both ways. If you're at your kid's basketball game but you're checking your cell phone all the time, you are inadvertently stressing yourself out because you're not in either place. You're not being present. So that's the point of this exercise is when you're at work, that's why it's called work, and when you're on vacation or you're having a day off, enjoy your day off. That's okay. So I am reminded of a call I had yesterday, Tim, with one of our great elite coaching clients. She said, I'm feeling a little bit guilty today because sitting on my back porch in my workout clothes. And I said, why are you feeling guilty? She's like, because I don't plan on doing anything today. And then I reminded her that she had just closed 15 transactions and has 50 active listings. It's okay to take a day off now and then if that's the position you're in, okay? So just keeping it real. All right, so here's the next part of this. After you've done the calendar exercise, you're going to figure out, are you on track, ahead, or behind of where you should be for.
So what she was saying is you have to decide whether you're ahead or behind for the year. You have to look to see where you are in terms of basically your actual production. And it's okay if going to fourth quarter you're behind. A lot of you are going to have these approaches to your businesses where basically you're having your best years ever. And when you have your best years ever, it's easy in fourth quarter to start giving yourself a break. And I'm going to use Rob Johnson as an example. And again, you guys have to listen to the interview I did with Rob. He's probably, I would be surprised if he's not one of the top 5 or maybe even top 3 most successful agents in the nation this year. He's going to close between $130 and $150 million in real estate, and he's only got basically one assistant. And this is what we teach you guys how to do. We definitely do not want you to be spending all of your profit on silly teams and whatnot, and go back and listen to our past podcasts to understand what we rally against. And the moral of the story is that we're going to teach you how to be profitable, but listen to Rob's interview. So one of the things that Rob and I talk about specifically is we talk about how to drill down and make sure you're staying on track in fourth quarter. Because he knows, because I've coached him for a long period of time and because he's a smart guy, he knows that basically what he does today is going to be what gets him paid. You know, in his market, truthfully, it could be a year from now. So the closings that you're making, the money you're making this month is a result of the work you did 60, 90 days ago. In some markets. In other markets, it's work you did 6 or 12 months ago. So if you're finding yourself rolling into the end of the year and you're on, you're way behind your market or way behind where you wanted to be. Maybe you didn't even have a business plan. That's what the Real Estate Treasure Map's all about. Text the word Harris to 31996. So, let's assume for the sake of conversation you had a business plan. You're rolling into fourth quarter. You're way behind your goal. Don't give up. Reset. Hit a hard reset. January 1st is today. That's the mindset. And then basically say, I'm going to start again, and you then start with the next thought. If you're on target or if you're basically, following through on your plan, well, you've had a good year. Congratulations, but don't stop. Because fourth quarter is the most important quarter of the year if you want to have a great next year. And the ones that, frankly, I worry about the most are the ones like Rob. If you're having these fantastic years, It's so easy to over-celebrate and stop working. And so my call today with Rob and my coaching calls with all my coaching clients that are exceeding their expectations by a measurable amount is I'm keeping them on track and grinding them like they're back in boot camp because I cannot allow them to be complacent. Otherwise, they're going to suffer, in his case, a year from now. Now, why do I say a year from now? Because in his market, conversations that he starts today result in paychecks 12 months from now, okay? That's the interesting thing. You've got to know your market cycle. We teach you how to do that in the Real Estate Treasure Map. So just text the word Harris to 31996. Another great call I had today with Brandon Jackson. His listing to paycheck cycle is probably maybe 90 days. So 90 days puts him almost into January, doesn't it? So the listings he's taking and the relationships he's starting and the work he's doing now is going to pay him in the new year. So if you stop working now, or I'm going to work, Tim, what are you talking about? It's doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it. And the last part is where you guys screw it up. Everybody does. I occasionally screw it up. It's doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level. You might show up for work. You might, do your work thing, but you're not doing it at the highest level. Tim, what are you talking about? I made my 15 contacts today. But did you make the contacts with the intent of actually setting an appointment, or were you just basically wafting through just so you could check off the box saying you made the 15 contacts? It's like what Julie talks about in Harris Rules, our book, and you guys should get that. It's Barnes & Noble. It's for sale at Target. It's for sale at all the normal bookstores, and it's available on Amazon, too. And Amazon, I think, is the least expensive place to buy it. Go buy the book. Julie talks about that and gives a great analogy of like when we started going to Orange Theory a few years ago, and I know some of you guys are sick of us talking about it, but when we started going to Orange Theory, you go to the first part of the workout is you're on these treadmills, and there's the walk and talkers, which she talked about, which was really women mostly. It was all women basically who were doing the walking and talking. They were showing up. They were just talking with each other. They weren't, really working out. They're the walk and talkers. But after that, I promise you, they said they went to Orange Theory today. Oh, I worked out. I went to Orange Theory. No, you didn't. You walked at like 5, maybe 3 or 4 miles per hour for a half hour. You didn't do anything. You guys get the point? So some of you are walking and talking your way through life. You got to realize it's about doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level. That's the hard part of working this time of year, because it's easy to convince yourself that just because you're putting in the effort, it's what Julie said earlier. It's when you're in you're in between two worlds, right? When you're in between two worlds and you're not actually at work and you're not actually not at work, you're sort of in this in-between static zone, that's what causes you the stress, because your mind wants to settle in one place and you're in no place, in your head. So you're torturing yourself. It's a version of hell, really, because you're not present. You're not present with your family. You're not present with your kids. When you're, if it's Christmas or it's whatever holiday you celebrate, but you're worrying about deals because you didn't work and because in January there's not enough money coming in. Why would you allow yourself to suffer like that? It's all voluntary. Does this make sense, Julie?
Well, it's actually a lot easier to just do the work, to suck it up, buttercup, if you will. And I'll tell you, you make a great point about it's not just the doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it, although those two things are critical. It's doing it at the highest level. Right before this call, I hung up with one of our Canadian agents, John. He's a great agent, takes exceptional care of his clients. But he had a couple of weird things happen on deals, and he was a little bit off his game. But by the end of our call, he said, you know what? I'm walking into a listing appointment, and I'm going to kill it. Okay, he will do it at the highest level. I can hear in his voice the conviction that he's not just showing up like the walk and talkers. He's going to kill it. He's going to leave with that listing. So there is a huge difference. And I do think, Tim, that it is harder this time of year to bring it like at that level than in other times of the year, like when you're just starting out a new year or you're halfway through or you're getting back from your summer vacation. It is harder, but that means you've got to fight harder. You've got to have TFW.
Define why it's harder, though, right? Jules, it's not harder because the market pushback, okay? It's not harder because of anything external. It's harder because what's going on in your own head. It's actually easier this time of year because you have less competition. Truth, that's really it. And a lot of the people that are in the market, look, if there's a buyer, when Julie and I sold real estate, we sold it in Columbus, Ohio. And trust me when I tell you, when you had a buyer that wanted to look at houses in the winter in Columbus, Ohio, that was a real buyer. When you had a seller that wanted to put their house for sale in Columbus, Ohio in the winter, that was a real seller. But that's true all over the country. If you're in, we have some of the best coaching clients in, work in Manhattan. Okay, for example, and that market now is essentially entering a 3-year. It's what do you want to call it? Buyer's market? I think it's worse than that. Houses apartments as they call them in Manhattan. For the last quarter they depreciated like 13% or something. Guys, that's a freaking bloodbath. And guess what? It's not subsiding. It's subsiding. It's continuing. There's going to be a downward market in Manhattan for another 2 years. But here's what happens: there's sellers that have to sell. They don't want to, lose more money. If they wait 6 months, the house is going to be worth less. The apartment's going to be worth less. So, they have the way to win in those situations is get as many listings. I know it's counterintuitive, but get as many listings from sellers that are at least extremely motivated, let alone have to sell sellers. And the averages will play in your favor, and you'll sell enough of those listings if you service those sellers while they have them listed. In other words, you got to keep them apprised of what's going on in the market and reposition the houses in the market, to reflect the buyer's expectations. Follow the rules that we teach you. Learn how to be a professional, and then you'll make tons of money because you're helping people solve a problem, which is selling a piece of real estate that's become an anchor for them financially and emotionally. When you do that, when you've earned the right to help people solve problems at that level, you cannot help yourself from making millions and millions of dollars. That's what we want you to connect all those dots in your head, guys. That's what we're wanting you to do. But never forget the cycle from, initial conversation to paycheck, right? And some of your initial conversations to paychecks are way more protracted than that because you're inefficient in having the conversation, because you're listing sellers or maybe buyers that will never transact with you, because you don't know how to pre-qualify. And then when you do get a good seller, in particular that's what we focus on, when you do get a good seller, you are not competitive and then you lose the listing. So for every 10 listing appointments you might go on, you might take one and it's your mom. Okay, you guys get the point? Whereas what we teach you to do is we teach you to accept nothing less than 100% success rate. Do not accept anything less than total success when you go on listing appointments. The listing appointment is the litmus test of your efficiency as a real estate professional and then obviously getting the property sold. That's what we're all about. All this other Mickey Mouse and the static that's out there that you guys have been seduced by over the last 10 or 12 years, those things are already proving to betray you. You need to give yourself permission to let go of those things, realizing that they did not work as promised, not because you suck, but because the ideas sucked. So if you are tired of beating your head against the wall about forming a team, or why your Instagram strategy isn't working, or why all these videos that you've been making isn't actually producing any, cashable checks for you. If you're really wondering why that hasn't worked for you, and you're probably starting to believe that it hasn't worked for you because of you, you are wrong. It hasn't worked for you because the idea sucked. You didn't suck. So give yourself permission to stop doing those things that aren't working to actually move you towards the accomplishment of your goal. If you don't know what your goal is, complete the real estate treasure map, and we give it to you for free. Here's all I want you to do. Text the word Harris to 31996. We're going to send you a link. Download those 6 books. You're also going to be entitled to a free coaching call with one of our new member coaches. They're going to help you get the real estate treasure map completed. This is your plan. Take advantage of it now. So Julie's off to premiere. Here's what I want you guys to do. Write this down. Seriously consider joining us in our TFW 2020 movement, okay? That's what we're going to call it. And we're going to talk about this continuously for the next 90 days. And we're going to talk about it, you're going to hear about it so frequently that you'll probably start sending me emails telling me to stop talking about it. It's TFW 2020, Total Effing War 2020. That's what you have to declare. Declare war on your complacency. Declare war on your lack of skills. Declare war on the continuation of bad ideas. Declare war on a crappy commission split with your broker. Declare war on inefficient team members. Start focusing on why you got in this business originally, and chances are you got in this business originally because you wanted to be rich. And the simple definition of rich is where your money works for you and you no longer have to work for your money. In other words, you want to wake up and not have to just basically rely on transactions to, essentially maybe passive income would be a nice alternative, right? Maybe that's something that some of you guys need to move towards more aggressively with the actions that you're taking. Maybe you need to realize that real estate business
This program has been a presentation by Tim and Julie Harris, Real Estate Coaching. For more information on our real estate coaching and training programs, visit our website at timandjulieharris.com. Remember to tune in